Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensional frequency. Seventh, eighth, ninth, and so on and so forth. Above and beyond into the angelic realm of energies. As I sit here introducing this frequency that we sit in this very moment in time, you may find some confusion. As I've been saying for all of this time, that we are no longer so much so anchored into this second dimensional frequency so fiercely, as we've shifted in a forward and upward trajectory, not only within the three-dimensional frequency, but up and forward into the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, all the way to the 14th dimensional frequency. And even as I speak right now about the frequency that is incoming into our atmospheric feeds, I must remind you of what I've said all along in all the previous videos, that we are still anchored into this distortion field of no higher than the fourth dimensional frequency. This may trigger some confusion in your auric field as you say, Genesis, well, how can this be that this frequency from a higher dimensional realm is funneling into our quantum verse? How can it be in this moment in time that this would happen within our quantum verse, yet we're still so much so anchored into a fourth dimensional frequency that we sit in? I excitedly declare to you that an angelic funnel within the past 2 days or so has been successfully anchored over the Israeli lands, within the Israeli feet, within the Palestinian lands, within the lands of Yeshua. This funnel was successfully anchored over, above, and beyond the time scope of 2 days ago. It had always existed within every single realm of all realms, as Yeshua had anchored it down a little over 2,000 years ago, yet the blurring, the funneling into the two-dimensional frequency of this very frequency that Yeshua had anchored down so very long ago, so very short ago, within the timescape of the non-time within our quantum verse, as time only exists within our dimensional frequency of Gaia's field, had always been there. And yet, a little over 2 days ago, this frequency field within the angelic realm had been successfully anchored in yet again within this distortion field, as the energetic pathways within Gaia's frequency of the ongoing and forthcoming trajectories within her ley lines had finally made a clearing, had finally made a passing, had finally awakened and undistorted, redistorted, previously distorted amounts of undisclosed lightworkers systems within our ley lines that sits above and beyond Gaia's frequency field. And as I speak these words, I would like to declare to you that the Galactic Federation had successfully funneled in a 4-dimensional, 5-dimensional tunneling system that reaches all the way up through all of the dimensional frequencies and into the angelic realm within this very field over the Israeli lands that Yeshua's frequency is anchored down into, had been anchored down into once upon a time of no time within our distortional field when humanity needed it the most. And as I hop onto here to declare this exciting news to you, I would like to also declare to you not to clutch onto your pillows too tight in the disheartening energy of the positive funnel that is inevitably about to funnel through into our field, into Gaia's field, within the next overarching distortion field that is bound to be incoming into our frequency field. As the calm before the storm is just that, ladies and gentlemen. As an era of peace sweeps across the Israeli, the Palestinian lands, the Palestinian people will feel as if they're holding onto their breath no more. As one more time they've been freed from the overarching defeats that they've been feeling, that they've been holding onto for far too long. But as history can tell an entire civilization of how and when they eat, of where and what they bathe with, of who and what they project their energetic field onto, as the control mechanisms within the scope of Gaia's field, within the scope of all fields, within her field of all fields, has been controlling the Palestinian and Israeli people for far too long. They've let go of that overarching breath that they've been holding onto for the past 2.5 years of distortional feats. And 2.5 years of torturous energies, I must say, as the people within the Israeli and Palestinian lands of Yeshua's land have not suffered enough in this frequency, according to the darkness of all darknesses that control, that scheme to control in the middle of the nights of all nights, the breaths that we take as a civilization, as they overarchingly anchor into the fields of Yeshua's people, of all people, of these people that are so intrinsically interlinked with Yeshua's energetic field that interlinks in with the all, that within this distortion field, of the all within the all, within all distortion fields of this distortion field, of Gaia's distortion fields of all fields. If you stick with me to the end of this video, again, I promise you the rewards are overarchingly great, as you will come into a realization of all that has been happening within the Israeli feats on top and above this land, and the political landscape that anchors and drives this negative distortion field into a fruition is about to succumb to the brightest light that there has ever been, anchored into this field a little over 2,000 years ago, as Yeshua had decided to descend down into this field to anchor down this light that has been overarchingly blocked, clogged, in an essence of all words of the English dictionary that I could ever succumb to within this moment in time to describe the overarchingness of the situational scope that we are sitting in. Blocked is not a big enough word to describe what this light had to face ever since the anchorage within this field of the angelic realm, within the distortion fields, within the mountains of Yeshua's land, underneath the olive branches of Yeshua's trees. The life giver of all givers, the coherency and the conglomeracy of all that you know, all that ceases to exist at the end of the night when you go to sleep, as you travel into these distortional realms of higher vibrational energy fields. All that ceases to exist on a physical level as your soul that is so much so anchored down into this dimensional field decides to leave your body for once and for never, and for once and for final, and for once and for overarchingly forever. At the end of long days, as you anchor down into your sleepscape, into your sleep field, as your soul begins to travel the quantum verse back home into a space of overarchingly knowing of what it is to do, as it anchors in to get these activations from the angelic realm. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are located within the scope of the Israeli-Palestinian lands of what is, chances are you are a light worker. And as I say this, as I speak life, as I breathe soul into these words, I receive an unlimited amount of tingling shooting up to my crown chakra from the distortion field of my root chakra, as truths can never be withheld within a dimensional field of light workers who will soon find themselves to awaken to possibilities of endlessness, to possibilities of truths never being able to be withheld, regardless of the schemes, the forever arching dark schemes of the consciousness of the darkness within this reality field that has been trying so desperately, that has been trying so harshly, that has been forever archingly scheming within the scope of all scopes to stop you from awakening to your greatest truth, to halt you from ascending into a frequency of forever arching knots, of forever arching possibilities within the light of what is within a unity frequency of all. The darkness is so great within its darkness that right now, within the scope of the brightness that has been triggered in and anchored in within the Israeli lands, within Yeshua's olive branches that had drawn across civilizations, that has grown across epic distortional fields, that has reached into, within and without, all that it has ever represented as a truce within humanity, within a humanity field of defeats, of overarching defeats. And as these olives begin to drop one by one from these overall arching branches that have drawn across humanity fields, they will begin to explode in a pungent manner. They will begin to distort themselves into a shriveled prune of some sort of pungency as the darkness begins to grapple onto the life given to them within these branches that had overarchingly been handed to them within this reality field by a consciousness of yours, by a consciousness of mine, by a consciousness of the all within the frequency of exploration, within the distortion field of creation. These olive branches will begin to slowly intermingle with the energetic frequency of the darkness within and without our frequency to then release of its life force back, distorting it, retorting it back into the light in which it comes from. Ladies and gentlemen, these olive branches that have been fueling a humanity field of the darkness, within and without this reality field of this creational scope that we've come here to experience once upon a time of no time, is now ready to finally, in defeat, in overarching wins, in overarching gains, in overarching bloodshed, in overarching lessons to carry home to a whole humanity field of knots, retract itself back into source consciousness, into a placement of the energetic frequency in which they come from, in which it has grown out from, to fuel the bloodshed within the Euphrates River for all of this time, to give life within a river of all rivers, within a distortional field of the anchorage of these olive branches that we call home, of these olives that ever so archingly grew within distortional fields to feed off of the darkness, to feed into the darkness, to feed within and without the darkness. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, of an angelic field, these branches will begin to feed into the angelic realm, within and without the distortional field of the light. Pure light. A pure light within distortional fields of the opposite of attraction, within the darkness of what is. These play on words can never escape you within a time of ascension frequencies that was forever archingly meant to bring you the deepest darkness that you've ever been able to experience, to retract your oversoul back into the all, back into the one that we forever archingly shall never not become. As ladies and gentlemen, these olive branches represents a unity so bright in its coherency, a distortion field so epic in its distorted realm that it has created for itself to fractal down into, to experience that of creation, of a creationary scope so large in scope, so wide in distortion field, so broad in all that it can never not be. What it can never not be is a conundrum at best. Yet the frequency within the darkness has been all along feeding off of the life force of these olive branches that have been handed over and beyond into their reality realm to reach into their field, to feed, to distort, to anchor into the greatest darkness that we can ever witness to be true and to be real. And as the Palestinian people begin to breathe an air of hope begin to sink into an essence of the peace lost during these 2.5 years of distortional fields within their distortional feet, within their energetic body that had sensed the incoming darkness a little over 2,000 years ago. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, as I stumble upon my words. My words of all words that distinguish the difference within a field, within an angelic field of darkness versus brightness that can never outrun the darkness within and without our frequency, without smothering the light within and without all that we shall ever be. My words of all words within the darkness, within Gaia's frequency, that shall forever archingly anchor in to the darkness of what is, to draw out the brightest light that there has ever been implanted behind, above, and beyond all of the chakra systems within a humanity field of forgetfulness within all times. And as a little over 2,000 years ago, this light had been anchored down in finality, in infinality, in all of the ways that you can ever grasp or grapple with within the ways of all ways you can ever imagine or envision to be true within your reality field. You will then come into the greatest realization of all time that the light within and without our field had always been yours to hold, had always been yours to behold, had always been yours to forever archingly tranquilize into a distortion field of all distortion fields. And as I speak of these truths in the middle of the night, as the Palestinian people, as the Israeli people that sits above and beyond these lands knows no borders, as all people are people of a source consciousness, are a creator within a creation scope, within a creationary feat. These people that I speak of within the locationary feat of the Israeli-Palestinian lands, above and beyond and within Gaia's locationary scope of the quantum verse, will begin to slowly anchor into this light so bright that has been activated within their field. Little by little will they begin to trigger into the awakening process that is inevitably built into their field within the creational scope of all stories to be told. What is so dangerous, what is so grand, what is so great about this awakening within the darkness of what is so distorted within the darkness of what is that the darkness has no idea what is to come within its field. As it tries to grapple on to the control mechanisms within this field, it will no longer be able to scare away humanity. It will no longer be able to pull its strings within the olive branches that trigger in its life force, as these olive branches have completely retracted back into the self, back into the angelic realm, back into the feeding of this light that has been anchored in to this distortional field within the locationary scope of Gaia's frequency above and beyond the Israeli lands, the Israeli and Palestinian lands, that holds a story so true, a story of humanity that can never be defeated within the olive branches of what is, what are, and what's ought to be. Ladies and gentlemen, as you listen to my transmission, just know in this moment in time that the confusion that is settling into your very bones in regards to this message will begin to clear out into clarity, into the greatest and grandest clarity that you have ever been able to feel into within your waking moments, within your sleeping moments, within the overall trajectory of all moments within this life span and this lifescape that you've fractaled out into this frequency to experience. And as this clarity begins to shiver and shake you into those boots that were made for you, that was designed for you to step into within the time of the ascension frequencies, just know that you are a light worker, born to suffer, born within this frequency of trajected feet, within the darkness of what is, born to hold on to these ailments of all ailments, to suffer through this humanitarian field of the 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional frequency prior to this awakening mechanism that has been built into your auric field to awaken you to these realizations of what is and what not, and what shall never be. that within the self of all selves, of the suffering that you've accomplished, of the suffering that you've stepped into, of the suffering that you so overarchingly distorted your reality field into becoming, into the identification of the identity that you are. As you are a light worker within the Palestinian and Israeli lands, and chances are, if you're still alive, if you're still breathing, if you're still hoping, if you're still holding on to that faith within and without your reality field, that things are overarchingly bright and will shift into a brighter scope of no trust ever anchored into this reality field. The trust that you have within the steps that you will take, within the next steps that will drive you into the bosom of Source, is overarchingly great, is never-endingly undefeatable. The strength that you hold within your heart chakra, within the very core of who and what you are within this very moment in time, can never be taken away from you. As it was built into you as an escape mechanism towards the end of times that leads to a new beginning, to be triggered in, to be unlocked, and to flourish in this energy of hopelessness found, of hopelessness lost, and endlessness found within a distortion field of hopelessness forever archingly knots. Ladies and gentlemen, this play on words even plays on me at times, yet this distortion field within the darkness of all distortion fields, in the simplicity of the English language, is dissipating into the light of what is. And as it does so, you will begin to awaken into the grandest truth, into the greatest awakening of your oversoul's overarching being and knowing and feeling into what it means to be a light worker sitting above and beyond these branches within the Euphrates River that feeds into a whole system of suffering of within all times, within Gaia's distortion fields of what is. As these branches begin to retract back into the angelic realm, to then extort itself back into your realm, to feed you, my light workers, with the overarching dropping of these olives, so juicy, so tender, so great, so overarchingly unfathomable. Will this negative energetic frequency dissipate from your field as you begin to awaken to the light within your energy body, within your energy system, within the grid ways that dictates Gaia's energy field? Don't get me wrong, the darkness still resides within and without her frequency in this very moment in time, and yet the frequency of this field that's been anchored down overarchingly strongly and overarchingly greatly within your field will begin to awaken you and your family members, as well as the next light workers that are within your field, to anchor down the greatest light that there has ever been within your distortional field of what is. And as peace draws to a closing within our reality field, as the calm before the storm begins to dissipate and recede back into the headlights, into the ley lines, into the oceanscape of the peace that you've drawn your last breath from, as your last breath begins to dawn upon you within this reality field of the 3-dimensional and 4-dimensional frequency, you will begin to exceedingly fearfully, in the most fearful way, in the most redundant way, in the most reductive way, breathe in and breathe out into that very peace, into that very fear that you have been anchored onto for far too long, to begin to release that fear and that peace. As that peace was never meant to draw from your oversoul for far too long, as that peace had never been meant in this moment in time to be forever archingly great and strong enough to stay within all fields of Gaia's fields. As that peace will begin to dissipate into the darkest night of all nights, as that peace that you sit in this moment in time was never designed to last forever within this darkness of what is. And as I break this news to you, that the peace, that the ceasefire will no longer lead into a humanity field of peacefulness that we can build off of within this reality scope, as I break this news to you, that the children that you clutch onto so tightly at night, fearing for the forgetfulness of not being able to clutch onto them for far too long, fearing of the darkness within and without your field, of one day awakening within this distortional field to find that they've forgotten to come and take your children, as that peace within your distortion field begin to release of your children in the moments of the past the ceasefire, the moments prior to the ceasefire and the moments after the ceasefire will bring you the greatest peace within your field that you've ever been able to experience within the past 2.5 years within this distortion field of knots. And yet this peace had never been designed to stay around for an eternity and more. And as I know that you are a light worker within your field, awakening into your destiny, and as I know you've sensed the overarching strong feeling of untrustworthiness of Netanyahu's message, of the untrustworthiness of the United States of America, and the messages that Trump projects and the energy that he distorts in this reality field, I'm here to tell you that you were right all along, that this peace had never meant to be anchored into your field for far too long, that this peace had always been designed to give you a moment of clarity, of a deep breath so deep within this distortional field that it would anchor into the deepest darkness within the brightness that you feel of what is. That this peace had never ever wanted to let in within a distortion field of the darkness to allow you and your society to rebuild as you deserve. So, and that this peace will be ripped away from you within the next moments in time as you clutch onto that very soul that dropped down out of your body to become the light working children that you hold on to and that you hang on to for all of this time. Excuse the brevity of my message as I go in too deeply into the imagery of what it means to be able to suffer through these distortional fields of children lost, of mothers' breaths overarchingly smothered in pain and fear of what it would mean to allow these children out of their sights, out of their grasps, out of their distortion fields to explore as children should, as children will do, and as children shall never ever be able to do within this field without your mother, if she still exists, breathing and breathing out in fear of the darkness within this world of hers, of ours, that could come and snatch her children in the middle of the night, that could come and snatch her husband, that has probably already snatched her neighbor's children, her neighbor's grandparents, her grandparents. It's hard-pressed to believe that you, within the Palestinian lands of what is, have not lost something so personal to you at this stage of the war, at this stage of the distortional field within this war that you suffer through day in and day out. You're tired. I'm tired. We're tired. And as I sit in the comfort of my couch, above and beyond the Toronto lands within a Canadian land of light workers descended down into this frequency to ultimately connect our energy body into every ounce of your energy body, I can confidently say to you that we're tired as a whole entirety of a consciousness. And as you are the very sacrificial lambs that dropped down into the very frequency of what the word tired can mean in a physicality of a distortion field of consciousness, within the consciousness of what is, within the consciousness of what nots, and within the consciousness of a distortion field within a physicality of becoming conscious of what tired really means and feeling into this consciousness of the tiredness that every single cellular structure within your body holds, of the fear that you have never been able to let go of, for fear that your neighbor's children can dissipate in the middle of the night, for fear that you may not have any children, but the children that you hold on to so dearly in your heart, the family members, the societal fields, the teachers, the hospitals, the grandparents, the person down the street that you don't even know, suffer the same plight and the same flight within a distortion field of an entire society, of an entire societal scope that has lost itself in the middle of the nights of all nights. And as you grapple with the idea of being able to find yourself in these light working journeys and awakenings that you are faced with, the overarching steps in front of you are harder than hard to climb, are harder than hard to descend down into, to then ascend back into the light of what is, into your soul's purpose, into your soul's mission. But you were built for this, my light workers. You were built on every single scale of a scope that I can ever imagine for you not to know and to sink into so brightly and so deeply at the end of this awakening journey of merging so brightly and so deeply and so inquisitively and so coherently into the all of the source frequency that is incoming your way in your perception fields. I wish you well in your journey, my light workers, as you trudge across this overarching, eliminating field of peace, of tranquility, of a breath well-deserved within the current moment, within the October scape and the late October scope of all that you are in this moment in time. As within the next moments in time, as we head towards November, as we head towards the end of November, as we head towards the beginning of December, things will begin to rapidly change in your field. I wish you all of the love that I hold in my heart as I think of what you will have to face and what you will have to trudge through within the next moments in time, as the darkness will begin to undoubtedly, unsurably, so surely anchor into all that it has ever been, to begin to fight for its last breath, to be able to fight, to grapple onto this olive branch that has been given to them in sincerity in the beginning of creation, so that an entire humanity field can experience our creative scope within the darkness of what is, to then be able to bring home these lessons of what is. But within the reality field of all fields, the anchoring of this massive light that Yeshua has anchored over your land a little over 2,000 years ago is beginning to grow in feats. And as you feel into, as you tap into this portal that is ever so expanding and ever so shifting into all that, you shall forever not come to the realization of being until you overcome the essence of the hope lost within your fields and the distortionary field of the darkness, until you smother yourself so deeply within this darkness to a point where you come to a point, to a perspective where you're able to come into the brightest light within this field. You will then come into a realization of your mission, of your being, of the wholesomeness of who and what you were created to become in this very moment in time. And as that peace begins to be ripped out from underneath all of the fields of the Palestinian lands, hold hands, hold energy fields, hold faith within the creationary scope of all that you've ever been, within the trajected feet of all of the miraculous incoming frequencies that are coming into your fields. Hold on to the hope, hold on to the faith that all of this was meant for a reason, and that the purpose will soon be incoming into your field as these olive branches begin to reach out to you, to begin to fuel your light, as it has taken too much away from you and your children and your family and your societal fields. It will begin to give back exponentially back into your field what has been taken from you, but not before the darkness takes its final breath, not before the darkness fights its ultimate last fight, not before the darkness comes into a realization of the severity of the circumstance that it has sunken itself into within this reality field that has no longer been able to want to hold on to the darkness of what is. And as these branches begin to retract back into the all and begin to reach out into your field and to feed into the light that you carry, hold forth, hold onto it, clutch onto the hope that these branches draw from an energy of infinality, of finality so great and so grand, of the light within and without your frequency that will connect you through these funneling systems of overarching feats that will broadcast to you what you need to do in the very next moment in time to be able to anchor in this light within this distortional field of what is, to be able to overarchingly defeat the darkness that has been anchored into your field for far too long. And as you sit in disbelief, as you sit in the negativity that you perceive for me to be injecting into your field in this very moment in time, just know the truth, just breathe the truth, just anchor onto this truth that this negativity had always been a perception field within your field of what is to come. And what has never been, what was designed to be the easiest retraction to self that we have ever encountered to be, as the easiness of it all will distort into the complexities of it all as you're living it, ladies and gentlemen. You're breathing it, you're being it. You're overarchingly distorting yourself into this retractive process, feeling into every ounce of this negativity, of this darkness, so that you could be able to one day awaken to the brightest light that you shall never not be. Ladies and gentlemen, as you sleep calmly and peacefully tonight, and for a number of nights leading up to the retraction of this peace, just know that all of this was designed for a purpose. Just know that you are safe, you are well loved, all is you, all is proud of you, you are proud of the all, and you shall forever archingly be the essence of the light within and without this quantum verse, the giver of forgiveness, the giver of love, the giver of hatred, the giver of suffering, the receiver of love, the receiver of forgiveness, the receiver of the retractive energy that you hold. And as you, ladies and gentlemen, come into the end of the very beginning of my message within this olive branch of all messages that I had to release onto humanity in this very moment in time, you may be confused as to what is to come, but forever archingly great is this energy of this olive branch that will feed into your energy field. So hold on to that hope, hold on to that light, hold on to this distortional field that was never designed for you and only you to hold on to, as all of humanity, all of consciousness, all of the all that we ever archingly are lined up between you, behind you, above you, beyond you, below you, beneath you. We are here for you. We are breathing for you. We are holding on to that hope for you. We are projecting our light towards you, and we will interlink our light together into the oneness, into the fullness that we are as an entirety of a whole. Trust in that, breathe into that, and allow the light of this frequency that of Yeshua to anchor you into the hope, to the love, to the never ending scope of this brightness that you shall be able to never endingly draw from when the darkness gets too bright for you to handle, when the darkness gets too deep for you to succumb and overcome, when the darkness gets too overbearing for you to come into an understanding of what that was all about. And as we anchor in for once and for final within that moment in time, within that second in time, in the midst of 2027, the 5-dimensional frequency, you will then come into an understanding of what that was all about, of what the suffering would bring about, of what this light had overarchingly projected into our field of defeats. And for us to come across the ultimate ending of no ends, I congratulate each and every single one of us as the unity that we are, as the overarching oneness that we shall forever never be without, that we shall forever never be without, is a concocted feat in itself. But as we merge our frequencies and our consciousness back into the all during the ascension second and millisecond, that all of consciousness is set to distort itself back into the frequency of all, you will forever archingly drop your knees to the ground that you walk in the understanding of the energy and the messages that I project. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, have a good evening, have a good night, have a good morning, wherever you are.